Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. My name is Scott Barker. I'll be moderating this discussion for the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. We do appreciate you joining us. We know everyone has busy schedules, and with the long weekend, I know a lot of people are probably playing catch up. So thank you for joining us today. Very excited for this conversation we're going to have. And what we're going to be diving into is how to increase sales by 800% with this multi-channel approach. So we got some bold claims there in the title, and I'm excited to really just break it down. We got a nice meaty deck full of some great content that we'll be running through. And really what we're hoping that you take away from this is really 4 key points. So one, how to generate high quality leads in your respective, target accounts. Number two, how to design a tailored multi-channel sales marketing strategy, kind of from start to finish. And then how to orchestrate marketing and sales outreach. So once you have that strategy, how do you actually go and find these people? How do you get them to respond to you? And then last but not least, we'll touch on, how to scale out that process and really increase those sales. So a lot to cover today, so I'm going to try and just get out of the way and let my guests handle it. But before I do introduce my awesome guest, a few housekeeping matters. So if you've joined a Sales Hacker webinar before, you know that these are for the community. So we want you to get involved. We'll be having discussion back and forth, running through the deck, but if there's anything specific that maybe you're struggling with at your organization that pertains to what we're talking about, please jump in. There's a little Q&A section at the bottom there. Jump on, tell us your name, company you work for, and kind of that burning question you have. I'll definitely be doing my best to moderate the questions that come in as we go, and then we'll spend a little time at the end in a little Q&A section. And then the other point I just want to make is these are all recorded. So we actually have a YouTube channel. So if you have to jump off, you got to close a deal, you get pulled into a meeting, whatever it is, that's okay, because we'll send this out. Usually takes us about 24 hours, but we will get it to you. But yeah, we've got that out of the way. Now I get to introduce my guest. I am joined by Ned Lanphier. Ned, welcome to the community, man.
Thank you very much, Scott. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
I'm pumped. And as always, a little more color. So Ned has been the head of sales at Growlabs since October of 2017, I believe. And prior to Growlabs, you worked in leadership roles at Zen Prospect, which was Apollo, Intuit Demand Force, and also Yelp. And in this time, it's about a year and a half with Growlabs, you've actually seen the sales team triple revenue, which is crazy. And in November of 2018, Growlabs was actually acquired by AdRoll Group. So it's been a productive year and a half for you.
It's been a wonderful year and a half for me, both from a company perspective and a personal perspective. Yeah,
that's awesome. Do you have a favorite moment that you can reflect on over this year and a half that is just you must have just blinked and it's gone by with so much change. You're growing so quickly, the acquisition. Any favorite moments?
There have been lots of them. As you mentioned, it's gone by very quickly, but watching our team continue to succeed has been kind of the most rewarding aspect for me. But as you mentioned, anytime you go through an acquisition and they bring the entire team with them, that's an incredible success. And so we've been very fortunate to be welcomed with open arms into the AdRoll Group. And that's got to be the highlight for me in my time thus far.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's not very common that you see the full kind of talent acquisition happen too. So that's a huge testament to the team that Growlabs and yourself has built. I know the workings of acquisitions, having gone through one, recently myself as well. So kudos to your whole team.
Thank you.
But let's dive into it. I know we only have, the 45 minutes to an hour. So I want to make sure that we can spend, the bulk of our time diving into this. Without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to you and let's jump into it.
Well, thank you. It's very, very exciting to kind of get to share our experiences with the community here. And as you mentioned, we make some lofty claims in this title here and want to show the community exactly kind of how we're doing that and how we've been able to help companies to really scale their outbound efforts through not only micro-segmentation, but multi-channel approaches, and then understanding the value that that has. So today, we are going to cover a few things. First, micro-segmentation and the importance that that plays into not only identifying business models, but then allowing you to better understand what is and is not working for you, so that you're not wasting time on efforts that aren't going to manifest into revenue. Secondly, using multiple different channels for your outbound efforts, not being reliant or fixated on one. And then lastly, closing more deals more efficiently to make sure your team is focused on what they do best. So I'd like to start off and kind of show you how we analyze our funnel. Our funnel, we don't just say it's a top-down or upside-down triangle here. There are multiple different ways in which we perceive different value in different channels. And that starts with micro-segmentation, or identifying your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Here, if we look at ours, we obviously work with lots of different industries. Tech, SaaS, e-commerce, recruiting businesses have been our bread and butter, and though we have branched out into new industries in the last 6 months or so as well. But it really starts with understanding and identifying the segments that are going to benefit most from your product offering. And for most businesses, it's not ICP, it's multiple ICP. And so here at Growlabs, what we do is we not only try to identify those, but we then dive into it. So it starts with a hypothesis. Who do I think can benefit from this? Am I able to generate data on those individuals or those companies? Can I group them into an ICP that is worth the time and effort to pursue this? And then can I effectively evaluate the success that I'm seeing from this? Am I able to put out a attractive offer to these individuals as well? And that's how we approach this from a segmentation standpoint.
Yeah, and Ned, just want to stop you there quickly, because I think it can't be understated how important this piece of the puzzle is, right? If you're not getting this part right, the rest, it's going to be much more difficult. Every motion you do, you're going to be, wasting a lot of efforts. So, before we go into kind of the characteristics of, a good micro segment, what are some mistakes that you see people making when establishing, their hypothesis, when establishing these micro segments?
Yeah, it's a great question, Scott. So there are a couple things that people will do that lead them either down a rabbit hole that doesn't lead to fruition, or leaves them exposed to too many results and they're not able to analyze it. So what we do is we work with very clear segments that are not so small that they cannot be fruitful, but are not so large that you're not going to be able to analyze the results. We see too often when clients come to us that their ICP is hundreds of thousands of individuals, or is not limited by geography, by technology, by industry. It's important that everyone take the time to segment it down to a manageable number where you can provide individual value for those segments. It's only when somebody goes too far down the rabbit hole and they're only left with one or two businesses that we've seen the inverse.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So not forgetting the micro part of micro segments. You can't go too wide with it, or you're not going to get the feedback loop that you need to kind of refine, and you can't go too small because again, you're just not going to be able to collect enough data. And if you strike out on those, you don't have anyone else to go to.
That's correct. And obviously, too big or too small is going to be relative to the size of the business and the target audience that we're going after or the goals of the individual client. But at the same time, what's nice about a tool like Growlabs is you can create hundreds, if not thousands, of different segmentations to understand where your market value is. And then we actually can go as far as making recommendations on your behalf. And that's something that we'll get to later in this presentation, is using AI to really make future suggestions as well.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So going into the characteristics that we touch on here, it needs to be easily identifiable with similar pain points so that you can really provide a clear value to this segment. If you're not able to clearly identify a value proposition that is individual to this segment, it's not going to be a successful campaign for you. It also will help you to define the decision-making process and the cycle so that you have a repeatable process that you can understand when and how that is going to become valuable and convert into positive responses and conversations for your clients. So all of this is tailored into understanding a clear micro-segmentation that is going to provide value for your team. From there, what we want to do is to build these out. And within Growlabs, you can see here, we're going to be able to do multiple different audiences. One that we're looking at here is VPs, heads, and directors of sales at SaaS companies that have between 50 and 350 employees that have raised over 2.5, but under $10 million. We can really identify very specifically who this person is and the value that we're going to be able to provide. Similarly, we can also do this on a very different level. Maybe founders of marketing agencies that are under 25 employees, but are using a very specific technology where I can then reference a use case of an existing client of ours or a case study from an existing client that has benefited in the same way that this client will. So creating segmentations that not only go after the individual, but the type of business and their current situation is going to help you to create segmentations that are going to have value. And then going to that AI component that Growlabs has, we will then analyze your initial outreach to then better suggest who it is you should target in the future. So if we were to use this screenshot here as an example, I should be targeting computer software companies at the account manager level in the United States who are using HubSpot, Zendesk, AdRoll. Those are the people who are going to be most receptive to my messaging. And that's where Growlabs is going to help you to micro-segment this and then iterate upon that to have future success as well.
Awesome. And Ned, so I always like to, have the conversation go, let's say people don't have Growlabs, right? Like they're lacking the technology, but they're still wanting to identify lookalike audiences. Is there a way we can do that manually today?
Absolutely. So Growlabs offers a few different options when it comes to lookalike audiences. What we do is we call them AI audience reports. And our system will analyze your existing CRM data, whether that's imported through a CSV or direct integration, or your initial outreach through Growlabs, and be able to provide suggestions for similar businesses, similar personas that will benefit or will most likely be more receptive to your campaigns than that of others.
Yeah, makes sense. So if someone was looking to set this up manually, you would kind of manually go through your CRM, look at the different companies that are you're getting more ops with, and kind of just mirror those.
That's exactly right. So what we recommend especially for initial companies is take a look at your first 50, first 100 clients. What common themes do you see? Individuals or points of contact did you have at those companies? And then from there, extrapolate back on where you're going to focus your attention moving forward.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah. So obviously there are benefits to micro-segmentation. One, you're going to increase your conversion rates. By better understanding your audience, you're going to be able to provide more personalized communication and clearer value statements. This obviously leads to bigger deals. When you tailor your messaging and your value to their biggest needs, you're going to have synergy there that is going to lead to natural product fit and larger deal sizes. Also, we found that then this is shared in different communities, sales hacker communities, G2 crowd communities, Capterra communities, that will lead to that snowball effect where you're going to then get more and more inbounds through word of mouth. And then lastly, and something that is oftentimes overlooked but can't be overstated enough, is the feedback that you get from these clients and this new business will help you to directly improve your product over time. Whether that's new integrations that they would like, new product offerings, better workflows. We've taken feedback from almost all of our clients and directly implemented that into Growlabs to be able to better serve not only our existing clients, but future clients as well. And so that's a major part of this that micro-segmentation can help with.
Yeah, I love that. And snowball effect, again, it's such a big one. You know, if you break into a few, you know, for example, in the past, we did like a sports team campaign. And once you knock down a few of those, then, you know, they all talk, and then it just gets easier and easier, let alone your outbound, you know, BDR talk track. It gets so much crisper, you know, when you're talking day in and day out to the same micro segment, you're going to see your team's feedback loop on how they improve is much tighter because they're not talking to as wide array of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more on that. And that kind of perfectly sets us up for the next section of what we'd like to talk about, which is omni-channel approaches to those micro segments. Whether it be outbound efforts or obviously inbound efforts as well, we want to make sure that we're analyzing how well those are performing and we're communicating with these people in the right way. So, for example, here at Growlabs, we want to not only sync with your CRM and use your online tools like Intercom to bring leads into the system, but then to communicate with them through outbound automation and other strategic channels as well, whether that be through advertising or different communication options. And so that's one of the things I would like to talk about today is the ways in which we're going to do that. The traditional outbound sequences where there are multiple touch points have been around a while, and what we want to do is iterate on that and improve upon those. There's no replacing a strong segment that has a clear value statement, but one of the things that is important is the perseverance that's associated with that. As you can see here, most salespeople give up after step 2 or step 3. Having that perseverance to get deep into sequence is going to have a lot of value. One of the ways in which we've seen provides additional value is by then spacing those out from a time perspective. And one of the things that we've implemented here at Growlabs is machine learning that will help you to craft the different spacing here. So you see 6 to 8 days, 8 to 10 days, 2 to 3 days. By better understanding who it is that you're sending content to, you're going to be able to structure a sequence that's going to generate higher open rates and higher response rates. Some of the things that we target here when it comes to sending out sequencing is the title, the seniority, the industry, the geography of these individuals. By better understanding that, we can craft sequences that are delivered on schedules that bring in the statistical probability of open rates and response rates, which we've seen has been proven to convert at a higher rate for us. And then what we also want to do is to add in lines like A/B testing to ensure that we're being effective from this. And by understanding not only who you're sending it to, but what is and is not converting, you can continue to improve upon your sequences. And in doing so, be able to remove emails that are not converting and reorder you're seeing the best results. From there, what we really want to do is make sure our messaging is tight. One of the things that we found is more content does not convert at the highest rate. So keeping your emails short, clear, not using buzzwords or industry-specific terminology, but creating a clear and concise value statement is going to lead to the best possible results for these clients. And making sure that you sound like a human, not just sending out content that's impersonal, but really trying to connect with somebody is going to lead to those better and better conversion rates. One of the things we like to do here to help automate this process is to pull in this data automatically so that this isn't going to occupy more of your team's time, yet is still going to convert. As you can see here, almost half of the content in a given email that we are sending out is pulled in automatically through the system, whether that's the company name, the industry, the geographic features. There are keywords that we can pull in as well, and then inserting the clear value statement for an industry or for a micro segment is going to lead to better conversion rates. And then here's where we really get into the multi-channel approach. One of the things that we've really done is kind of interrupted or broken apart email sequences in order to bring in other channels as well. One of the popular ones that our clients use are connecting with people on LinkedIn. So not only just sending out an email, but following it up with a LinkedIn connection. And when that person accepts that connection, then following up with personal messages as well. We found that doing just LinkedIn or just email separate of each other don't convert at the same rate, but that when you combine the two and you follow them up simultaneously, especially with the SMB and mid-market segments, you're going to convert at a higher rate as far as generating not only responses, but positive responses.
Mm-hmm. Ned, can I jump in there quick? Because I think this is an important point to touch on. I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. I've used it to social sell for a long time. And there's a lot of talk about how you should do this. So for me, it's frustrating when I connect with an account executive, and then 5 minutes later they're pitching me their product on LinkedIn. How do you go about doing this in a tactful way that you're doing the connect and then sending a message? Is that message, what's the call to action, I guess, on that message typically?
Yeah, the call to action will vary depending on the seniority of the individual that you've connected with and the organization. More often than not, we try not to sell over LinkedIn. Obviously, you want to lead somebody to spending time with you, seeing a demo of your product or your service, but that's not going to be done over LinkedIn by our team. What we want to do is connect there, develop an initial relationship, but to then lead that to a conversation at a later date. We find that by going too directly through LinkedIn, you're going to get that initial connection and then be ignored. What this is a great opportunity to do is to bring in collateral. Say, hey, you know what, I thank you for connecting with me. Here are a couple examples of people that have benefited from a conversation with Growlabs or with your company, and then sharing a case study. That's where we've found the best results, and that's what we would recommend to our clients as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And definitely on the same page there. I think the whole notion of social selling is kind of a misnomer and a little bit misleading, because a lot of reps think that you can just go on there and copy and paste your template, and it's really not the case. People are going on LinkedIn to extract value and learn. So you have to reframe your mindset to fit that. And I would also advise never to pitch on LinkedIn. It's a very quick way to burn a bridge.
I couldn't agree with you more. So along those lines, as you're using different channels, one of the channels that in recent years some sales teams have gone away from, which I would recommend against bringing back into the fold, is phone calls, especially for high value accounts. I kind of cut my teeth at Yelp back in the day where we were making hundreds of phone calls, and while automation changed the landscape, the value of a phone call can't be overstated enough. And so incorporating phone calls into your process is going to continue to convert at a higher rate and also will allow you to better put a voice to an email, put a voice to a LinkedIn connection, and eventually can really generate a better return for your clients. And so a talk track or a outbound campaign similar to what you're seeing on the screen right now is what we advocate, that involves emails, LinkedIn, and phone. And then the last thing that we do to really kind of take that to the next level is to warm up these leads through advertisements. So as we talked about earlier in this, we're very privileged to be part of AdRoll Group. But even before the acquisition, we were big proponents of using ads, whether it's AdRoll or any advertising, to warm up the leads or segments that you're going after. And so whether it's segment-specific messaging or content, we really encourage that because we found that they convert at a much higher rate. And here at Growlabs, we can set different triggers to initiate ad campaigns. So if somebody is opening your email, whether that's once or multiple times, but not responding, we can initiate ad campaigns to them, which we've seen converts at a much higher clip. It boosts response rates and it boosts positive response rates to whole new levels. And one of the things that we do, and one of the things that we think is very important here when it comes to analyzing outbound campaigns, is to understand the difference between responses and positive responses. Here we use natural language processing, or NLP, to analyze the sentiment of those responses. And in doing so, we're able to differentiate, because just a response that all responses that come in are not created equal. And from a head of sales position, it really shows me how effective we're being at differentiating positive versus all responses.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And for people who wanted to kind of hack their way or like set this up, what would be a good way? Could you take, if you're an SDR leader, you take the accounts, let's say the 200 accounts that your team's going to be prospecting into that month or that week, and hand those over to marketing and import those, and then they could set some sort of targeted ad campaign up that way?
Absolutely. I think that'd be a great suggestion. It really will also depend on kind of your organization. If you have a marketing team, I would be pounding the table for them to be taking your target account lists and doing some sort of advertising to them. If you're a smaller company or you don't have a dedicated marketing department, I would go to adroll.com and sign up for an account. It's self-serve. You can turn it on or turn it off. You can set your budgets. But having the ability to complement your outbound efforts through ads has proven to be, as you can see on the screen here, incredibly effective and made a dramatic change in our results that we're seeing. So I can't tell you, or can't advocate for that enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people listening to this, myself included, would probably give my my pinky finger for a 33% boost in positive replies. So that sounds pretty good to me.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. So one of the things that really allows us to do that is Zap Your Connections. And so setting up different triggers is really important to the results that we see, not letting things slip through the cracks. Even though we're doing heavy outbound efforts here, I want to be notified when somebody is engaging with my content. And so here at Growlabs, we have Zap Your Connections to let me know that if somebody's opened my email X number of times but not responded, I can get a Slack notification, or I can get an email notifying me of this, and then I can reach out by phone or do a LinkedIn connection. Or pursue them through multi-channels. So having those alerts that stay on top of your outbound efforts and your pipeline without you having to do it creates a much more efficient model for our sales reps and allows them to convert at a higher rate as well.
Awesome.
Now, obviously, one of the things I wanted to touch on here is having segment-specific collateral. One of the things that we've seen leads to the loss of deals is just sending a case study that doesn't have any value to a client. You need to make sure that your materials that you send to the segment that you're going after. Otherwise, you're just bragging about another client that's not going to share the same value. And so it's very important to manage the collateral that you're sending and ensure that the materials you're sending to a specific segment represent the value that that client is going to see as well. So I can't speak to that enough. When you send collateral that doesn't have that same value, you're going to lose that sale more often than not.
Mm-hmm. So we should have specific case studies then for each micro segment that we're attacking.
If possible, obviously early on in the company's development, that might not be entirely possible. But as soon as you have a client from a new segment that you're pursuing, I would do our best, whether it's offering free opportunity or a subscription, to get them in the door in order to be able to show that value to future clients as well. That directly ties into the snowball effect that we discussed earlier as well, the word of mouth that will come of that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then I want to look at kind of the last section. So once you've identified this, we want to make sure that your process is as efficient as possible, whether you're able to understand that and pull them in. So what we recommend as far as the scheduling is to use a Calendly link or a scheduling link to make this a seamless process. Here we have a round robin. I've seen different teams do this differently. I would highly recommend that every communication you're sending out have a scheduling link. It will definitely help your team to fill up their schedule more quickly, their calendar more quickly, but also it will allow you to track those results, whether they be through inbound or outbound efforts. Here you can see on our website, we have a quick book a demo that runs through Calendly. It's very easy to set up, and I recommend that. But we also want to make sure that all of this is integrated to your CRM and that it's very easy for then a sales rep to send out a proposal or a quote to ensure that this isn't going to be a manual process and that your reps can continue to focus on having new conversations and that most of their time is not spent dealing with billing or tracking. That's the job of the head of sales, the CEO, whomever is kind of overseeing that. We want to make sure that there's systems in place that allow for your reps to be as efficient as possible. Here we use PandaDoc for our contracts, and they've been very helpful with us setting that up and running everything through our CRM. So I recommend them, but there are lots on the table. And then lastly, it comes down to measuring. How do you know if you're being successful or not? Well, revenue is one way of tracking, but if we really want to understand the efficiencies of this process, we need to look at these numbers. These are what we recommend here. So whether it's the opportunities that are created, whether it's the duration it takes for you to go from one stage to another, closed lost reasons, these are all factors that you need to understand if you're going to continue to improve your sales process. And by shortening duration, understanding why you're losing deals, you're going to lead to higher conversion rates over time. If we look at some of our numbers, this is the example of kind of one of our reps' pipelines in a given period. So, I mean, here we're looking at 282 new open opportunities that came in. Of those, we engaged 82 of them. That's a 36% conversion rate. And of those 82, we converted 23% of it. These are numbers of one of our reps from 2 months ago. And so these are the conversions that our platform is seeing. But this takes time to build up. Having these efficiency, the sales stack in place and having these workflows developed, this is the conversion rates that we hope that our clients are going to see as well. That's and awesome. Just to give you a sense, this was a 24-day period.
Nice. Yeah. And I often get asked benchmarks at Sales Hacker, and these are looking pretty darn good. Would you say that those are table stakes benchmarks, that you should be having a 36% conversion rate from an open op to an engaged and a 23% from engaged to one? Is that what you typically see, or is that kind of a more mature organization?
It's really going to depend on a couple different factors. Not only the maturity of an organization, though typically mature organizations have a tech stack in place that allows for efficiency, but it really depends on the segment that you're going after. We find that SMBs convert obviously at a faster clip than enterprise. But yes, this is fairly indicative of our clients as well.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So just to kind of go back and look at our funnel as a whole here, it really starts with micro-segmentation, understanding the landscape that is in front of you, and then very selectively choosing who it is you want to go after and presenting a clear value proposition to that one segment in order to convert them at a higher rate. From there, we recommend using multiple different channels, or what we call omni-channel approaches that involve emails, LinkedIn, phone calls, advertising, in order to convert them and generate new qualified demos. And then from there, having a existing process in place that's going to convert those in an efficient manner that does not occupy your sales team's business hours and allows them to focus on revenue generating conversations. So this is the funnel as we look at it, and we hope that this is going to kind of help you guys to convert at the similar rates.
Awesome. Awesome, Ned. That was great. And I know we're going to get this this comment and question. And yes, this deck will be available in the recording. I bet a lot of people will want to take a look at that funnel. And all right, let's jump to the questions. We've got some good ones here. And let's start with this one. And we get this question frequently. Anytime we talk about inbound versus outbound. We got a question from Sarah. Sarah, thank you for your question. And it's around, okay, so we talked about inbound and outbound. And Sarah wants to know, how should my reps be comped differently for inbound versus outbound? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sarah. On multiple factors. One, is there a significant difference in the size of the deals or the sales cycle that you are processing through inbound versus outbound channels? Secondly, it's going to be important on how much you are investing in inbound versus outbound channels. If your inbounds are coming through advertising dollars, or you're paying more to generate those, or inbound channels, that's going to affect that as well. So it's hard to say definitively. Here at Growlabs, we compensate our reps equally for inbound versus outbound channels, but it will depend on numerous factors. And the slide that we looked at that analyzes or recommends certain metrics to track, like duration, sales size, things like that, that will help you to make that decision. Yeah.
Makes total sense. So there's the size to think about, there's the cost of acquisition, kind of the investment that you're making, all things that should kind of factor in. Agreed, for sure. All right. Another good one here just came in from Callan. Callan, thank you for the question. I like this one. It's kind of the age-old sales versus marketing. Any suggestions on who should be writing outbound email sequences? Should that be something sales owns, or is that something marketing should own?
Yeah, again, it's a great question. We've done it every single different way. Even within sales, we've had VPs and directors and heads of sales write it. We've had SDRs write content. We've had marketing teams. We've had demand gen teams. We've had CEOs. It really, I'm indifferent to who's writing the content, as long as the content is clear and actionable. It has a clear value statement. It's not full of buzzwords or industry jargon. And as one of our previous slides goes, it's human. I think that I'm less concerned about who's writing it than what is being written. At the end of the day, quality content trumps which department's writing it. But if you have both departments, I'd encourage you guys to work together to do it. Oftentimes marketing teams, demographics in different ways or value propositions, and I can't speak highly enough of the on-the-ground experience that salespeople have, and can provide value to marketing teams as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree. I think it doesn't overly matter. I've seen it be effective when, marketing gives a kind of a first draft, and then the BDRs that are actually on the front lines will kind of review it and make tweaks, put it in their own natural language. I really like when, BDRs kind of put their own spin on it. And so it comes across as authentic for them individually. And then my last note on that is it's never a one and done exercise. So it doesn't matter who writes it, because this is an iterative process that, you have to be tracking your engagement tools that you're looking at, seeing where there's dips in conversion or dips in reply rates, and then make tweaks accordingly constantly.
Absolutely.
That's the fun.
Absolutely.
That's the fun of Outbound.
Pile on there. Sorry to interrupt you. To pile on there, using A/B testing will also help you show you what material is resonating with your target demographics.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great point. Great point. All right. Here's another one that I really like. Where would it go? Okay. So this one's from Morgan. Morgan, thank you for the question. And this goes back to defining, micro segments and ICP. Who in your organization should you get in a room when you're trying to define your ICP or your micro segments? This is a really good question.
Thank you, Morgan. It is a very good question. Without trying to be a broken record here, it's going to be dependent upon the business that you've developed thus far. I would say initially bring everyone and anyone into the room and brainstorm together. I think by better understanding the full landscape of who you might want to target versus also who you've targeted in the past, you're going to be able to come up with the different segments that would receive value from your product or your services. So I'm a big believer in kind of doing it on a communal level. I think some of our SDRs have had some of the best ideas we've ever had. And so I bring everyone into a room. But again, it's going to depend on your organization. Yeah.
I would agree that the more voices, the better on this one. Whoever heads each department, I would say, get the head of sales, of course, head of marketing, head of customer success, because, you may be able to close a deal really fast, but then if they're a headache on the back end, you don't want them either. I think whoever runs your finance team is important as well. Maybe you're not making as much money on a certain type of deal, so you want to be cognizant of that. So yeah, bringing in as many as possible is for sure.
Right. Also, I would say the customer success team and the account management team who are dealing with existing clients can oftentimes be very, very helpful in that process as well.
Absolutely. All right. They just keep coming. Thank you everyone for the great engagement through this webinar. It's been awesome. So this one is from Pauline. Pauline, thank you for the question. Pauline wants to know, how does this multi-channel approach play within a ABSD, so account-based sales development approach?
It's a great question. So we provide different target account lists to our team. What we want to do is allow them to go in there and they can upload either the list of companies they want to target or the list of company domains that they want to target, and then specifically filter within those companies or those account lists. From there, we can be very specific on a department level, on a seniority level, to really narrow it down. So whether it's going after a landscape and creating a segment out of nothing, or starting with an account list and filtering from there, we've been able to do it in multiple different ways.
Yeah, makes total sense. And Michael here has a follow-up question to that, which I like this question. Account-based sales development, when to use and when not? Do you recommend going all in on account-based sales development and that's all you do? Is it something to supplement the other approaches that you're using? When do you see it makes sense to use it and when not?
I think there are multiple things that you need to take into consideration when considering account-based versus kind of heavier outbound efforts. One of the things that I think needs to be considered is the time and effort it's going to take and what your addressable market is. If you're going after 10 or 20 or even 50 accounts, Absolutely, an account-based marketing strategy is going to be very important, and that personalization is going to be important. If you're going after hundreds of thousands of accounts, having a more efficient model is going to provide higher conversion rates and a better use of your time, a more efficient model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would totally agree. I think it's important to factor in kind of how much green space you have in your market, right? And you can afford to maybe go after more accounts if you have a wide open playing field. Maybe you're not in a competitive industry, and you can do that versus maybe more competitive, smaller amount of accounts, and that's when account-based can be really important.
I would say, when in doubt, err on the side of personalization. You never want to burn a bridge by just pumping out content that doesn't provide value.
Agreed. All right, last question here. This is from Brandon. Brandon, thank you for the question. This is very specific around kind of the technology. And Brandon says, not asking where this data is gathered from. I'm familiar with B2B databases, but where do you have it stored to be able to filter it through to that amount of detail? So again, I think this goes back to microsegments when we were looking at, the title, we were looking at the different technologies they were using. And then he asks, is this in Salesforce or are you pulling straight from a certain B2B database?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brandon. So here at Growlabs, we're spoiled. We have our own proprietary database that has over 320 million verified contacts in it. And we have a UI or a platform that our clients can log into to do that segmentation and that marketing, whether it's by industry, by job title, by seniority, or over 25 different filters. Our clients are able to filter those down within Growlabs and then export them to their CRM.
I love it. So you're drinking your own champagne over there, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that takes us to our time. Thank you, everyone, for the fantastic engagement throughout. Again, lots of really great questions. And Ned, thank you for all your insight. You're a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it.